It started with one cold instruction whispered through Buckingham Palace corridors, and suddenly Meghan Markle was no longer welcome through the same private royal entrance she once used without question. No warning, no emotional conversation, just a brutal stop order allegedly delivered by Princess Anne herself. And insiders claim the entire palace froze the moment security officers refused to move aside. Because inside the monarchy, private entrances are not just doors. They are symbols. Symbols of trust, symbols of status, symbols of who still belongs inside the royal machine and who no longer does. According to Palace Whispers, Meghan arrived expecting routine clearance, the same silent procedure senior royals had used for years. But this time, something felt different before the vehicle even stopped. Security radios reportedly crackled nervously. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. Staff members who normally acted with robotic confidence suddenly hesitated like they had received instructions nobody wanted to repeat out loud. Then came the shocking confirmation. The order had allegedly come directly from Princess Anne, not King Charles, not Prince William, Anne. And that detail alone detonated panic behind palace walls, because Anne had spent decades building a reputation as the monarchy's quiet enforcer, disciplined, controlled, emotionally unreadable. She rarely interfered publicly. She rarely escalated drama, which made this moment feel terrifyingly deliberate. What stunned insiders even more was how quickly palace energy shifted afterward. Aides allegedly scrambled through corridors trying to verify whether the restriction was temporary, symbolic, or something much worse. Because within royal culture, access means everything. Every hallway, every doorway, every protected corridor inside Buckingham Palace quietly reflects rank, trust, and institutional standing. So when Meghan was reportedly denied access to one of the monarchy's most protected entrances, palace staff instantly understood the hidden message underneath the decision. This was not about logistics. This was a line being drawn publicly inside a family already drowning in fractures nobody could fully repair anymore. And according to insiders, the timing made the situation even more explosive. Behind the carefully rehearsed smiles and polished public appearances, tensions inside the royal family had allegedly been boiling for months. Staff members reportedly feared private family matters were continuing to leak outside palace walls. Senior royals were said to be growing increasingly paranoid about loyalty, trust, and institutional control. Some insiders even claimed Anne had privately warned senior figures long ago that royal boundaries were becoming dangerously weak. She allegedly believed too many exceptions had already been made behind closed doors, while the monarchy's stability kept eroding publicly. And when Meghan's arrival triggered that now infamous confrontation at the entrance, Anne reportedly decided enough was enough. Witnesses described the atmosphere afterward as icy. Security officers allegedly stood frozen, unsure whether the order might suddenly be reversed once Prince William or King Charles became aware of the situation. But according to Palace Whispers, no reversal ever came. In fact, insiders claim Anne's position only hardened as confusion spread through Buckingham Palace. That silence terrified staff members because it suggested something deeper was happening beneath the surface. Some aides allegedly realized this was not a spontaneous emotional reaction. It felt organized, controlled, final. And the most chilling detail? Sources claimed Prince William was informed almost immediately, yet there was reportedly no outrage from his side, no emergency intervention, no visible attempt to soften Anne's decision. Inside palace corridors, that silence became deafening. Because in royal culture, silence can be more dangerous than words. A denial can calm panic. A correction can stop speculation. But silence creates suspicion. And according to insiders, palace staff quietly interpreted William's lack of intervention as something dangerously close to agreement. Not necessarily agreement with every emotional consequence, but agreement with the principle Anne was defending: duty, structure, discipline, protection of the monarchy above emotional reconciliation. That realization reportedly sent shockwaves through royal households because suddenly Anne no longer looked isolated. She looked supported. Meanwhile, Meghan was allegedly blindsided by the restriction itself. Sources claim there had been no indication the rules surrounding palace access were about to change so dramatically. But insiders insist the deeper emotional damage came from what the denial represented symbolically. Because inside the monarchy, these gestures are never random. Every protocol carries meaning. Every restriction carries hierarchy. And according to Palace Whispers, Meghan allegedly viewed the blocked entrance as a message being delivered directly from the institution itself, not temporary frustration, not procedural confusion. Exclusion. Prince Harry's reported reaction only intensified intensified palace fears further. Insiders claim he saw the move as a deeply personal humiliation aimed not only at Meghan, but at their entire place within the royal structure they once belonged to. According to aides familiar with the aftermath, emotions exploded behind closed doors almost immediately. Calls were allegedly made between households. Voices reportedly rose. Communications teams quietly prepared contingency plans, fearing another devastating media war could erupt within hours. Some palace staff even admitted they feared the monarchy was approaching another breaking point it might never fully recover from. But then another shocking layer quietly emerged behind the scenes. According to insiders, security concerns may have played a larger role than anyone initially realized publicly. Palace sources claim discussions surrounding sensitive royal entrances had reportedly been happening for weeks before Meghan's arrival. Certain protection teams allegedly worried that access protocols surrounding non-working royals had become increasingly inconsistent and difficult to manage operationally. Suddenly, Anne's actions started looking less impulsive and far more calculated. Supporters inside palace circles reportedly argued Anne believed emotional exceptions were slowly weakening the monarchy's institutional structure. To them, this was not cruelty, it was survival. But behind all the outrage, the whispers, and the emotional chaos exploding through Buckingham Palace, one terrifying realization slowly began spreading among royal insiders. Princess Anne was not backing down because she believed she was protecting the monarchy from collapse itself. And suddenly, what looked like a brutal personal humiliation transformed into something far more dangerous, an institutional power shift happening quietly behind palace walls while the public remained distracted by headlines about a single doorway. According to insiders, the atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace became almost unrecognizable by the end of the week. Conversations reportedly stopped the moment certain senior figures entered the room. Doors closed faster. Meetings became more secretive. Staff members allegedly avoided discussing Meghan and Harry openly because nobody knew anymore which side senior royals privately supported. And that uncertainty created fear everywhere. Because for years, many palace aides still believed reconciliation might eventually happen behind closed doors. But after Princess Anne's explosive decision, insiders allegedly started realizing something much colder was taking shape inside the institution itself. Sources close to palace operations claimed Anne's authority quietly grew stronger in the aftermath of the confrontation. Senior household officials reportedly began viewing her as one of the monarchy's last truly uncompromising defenders, someone willing to enforce boundaries even when emotional fallout became catastrophic. And according to insiders, that growing respect from within palace structures changed the balance of influence dramatically. For decades, Anne had remained in the background, disciplined, loyal, almost invisible compared to louder royal personalities constantly dominating headlines. But now, whispers inside Buckingham Palace described her as the figure many senior royals trusted most during a period of instability, scandal, and internal distrust. What shocked insiders most was Prince William's alleged alignment with Anne's thinking. Palace sources claimed William increasingly viewed the monarchy through the same lens Anne always had: survival first, duty first, protection of institutional structure above emotional repair. That does not mean William allegedly enjoyed the emotional damage being caused behind the scenes. In fact, insiders described the future king as deeply aware of how devastating the family fracture had already become publicly. But according to palace whispers, he also feared something else. He feared the monarchy itself was slowly losing control of its own authority while scandals, interviews, accusations, and public conflicts kept eroding trust around the institution. And that is where the situation became truly explosive. Because once senior royals allegedly started prioritizing institutional survival over family healing, the emotional temperature inside Buckingham Palace changed completely. Staff members reportedly noticed discussions surrounding duty becoming harsher, less flexible, more rigid. Boundaries were allegedly tightening quietly everywhere. Security reviews intensified. Internal access discussions became more restricted. Palace communications teams reportedly moved into near-permanent crisis management mode as fear spread that any fresh emotional explosion between both sides could permanently damage the monarchy beyond repair. Meanwhile, King Charles was reportedly trapped in the middle of an impossible emotional war. Insiders described him as deeply torn between his role as father and his responsibility as monarch. On one side stood Harry, his son, carrying years of resentment, frustration, and emotional wounds already exposed publicly through interviews and media battles. On the other side stood an institution increasingly demanding discipline, control, and structural authority during one of the monarchy's most unstable modern periods. Sources claimed Charles desperately wanted calm behind closed closed doors. But every attempt to balance compassion with royal order reportedly left him looking weaker to one side and colder to the other. For Meghan and Harry, however, insiders claim the blocked entrance represented something emotionally devastating that could not easily be repaired, not because of the physical restriction itself, but because of what it symbolized inside royal culture. According to Palace Whispers, Meghan allegedly realized the confrontation was revealing how much the monarchy's inner structure had already shifted against them privately. And Harry reportedly struggled with the growing belief that people who once stood closest to him inside the institution were no longer willing to publicly defend or protect his place within it. That realization allegedly reopened years of bitterness almost instantly, and perhaps the most chilling detail of all was the silence afterward. No emotional public defense from senior royals, no visible reconciliation effort, no dramatic palace correction, just silence. Cold, controlled silence that insiders reportedly interpreted as confirmation that Anne's actions reflected a broader institutional mindset already spreading upward through the monarchy itself. Some aides even admitted privately they feared this confrontation marked the beginning of a far stricter royal era, one where loyalty, access, and inclusion would no longer be shaped by emotional family ties alone, but by rigid institutional expectations enforced without hesitation.